Let's make this action sequence sports poster in Photoshop. Let's start by dragging in the 4 player cutouts we're going to be using. These are photos of Toba Dekrana that I got at championship weekend this past year. I'm just going to start by dragging them in and sizing them up approximately. I don't want them too big because we need room to space them all out. And with the sizing of these, I want to make sure the head sizes all match up. Obviously we have different body positions, but I'm just going to do my best to make sure the head sizes are relatively even. Maybe number 3 goes up a little bit more. Now I'm gonna start spacing these out from top to bottom. We'll start with 1 in the top right. And for my margins here, I'm gonna pull up my grids with Command apostrophe. I have a whole video on grids, guides, and margins you can check out. I'm just gonna move this so it has a 2-box margin on the right side. And we can adjust the height later, but we'll start with 5 boxes from the top. And then with our 4th cutout, where he finally has caught and finished the layout, again, 2 boxes from the left, and we'll go 5 boxes up from the bottom. Now the rest of these cutouts, we can select all of the cutouts by holding Shift and highlighting all of them in the layers panel. And then we can distribute both horizontally with the move tool selected, this icon here, and vertically, this icon up here. So that'll give us a good starting point with how we want to space these cutouts. Now with the background, because we have a solid white and with the disc in these images, it's also pretty white. I'm going to change the background to more of a light gray so we can see the disc on it. So something around there. Just with the fill tool, you can click once on the background to fill it any color. Now we can see the disc a little bit better. Now the cutouts are looking a little big to me. I want a little bit more space between them. So let's just size them down a little bit more with Command T, just selecting them all. Command T to transform, and then again, realigning that 2-box margin from the left and about 2 boxes from the right as well. And then we can start with the shadows on the first one. So I'm going to hold Command and click on this thumbnail image. So we've got marching ants around this cutout. Let's make a new layer and hit G for your fill tool. Set the foreground color to black and click once. So now we've got this solid black fill. Let's put this behind the cutout, and I'm also going to convert this for smart filters, going up to filter, convert for smart filters, just in case we need to edit it later. That's a good way to make sure you don't lose any pixels. Now I'll take Command T to transform, and this foot shadow technique, you can just drag down from the top of the transform box. This is a good technique to use when you have a cutout where their limbs are kind of away from their body. It's a lot harder when everything's in tight to distinguish, but like we have some free arms, we have the disc. I'm just gonna nudge it up so it lines up with his feet, and then we'll do the same technique for the other cutouts as well. Again, Command click, fill, and convert for smart filters, and then again Command T to transform. I'm just gonna group these all together so we can move around the cutouts with their shadows. So let's group this, call it 4, group these 2, call it 3, group these 2, call it 2, and our top right with its shadow, we'll call it 1. Now the other thing I want to do with these cutouts is run them through Camera Raw filter, do kind of some base photo edits to these. So we'll start with the top right cutout. Let's go up to filter, Camera Raw filter. We'll start with the lighting conditions. I think I want to up the exposure a little bit, maybe play with the contrast, boost the shadows. I do want to go down into detail and bring in some noise reduction, just to kind of smooth everything out a bit more. We can also go into our color mixer. You see how like the jersey and shorts, they're not perfectly black or grayscale. They've got some blue tones. So let's take the blues out. We can also take the purples out. This is just in the saturation panel. Magentas, I guess there's a little bit of that on the front of the jersey. We'll keep that as is. And with the hue, I like to shift the skin tones a little bit towards the red. So taking the oranges down there, maybe taking the reds a little bit to the left too. At saturation, maybe we boost the skin tones a little bit with the oranges, plus 13. Now if we go back up to effects, we can bring in some texture and clarity just a little bit to bring in some more contrast in the key parts. So let's click OK. You can see a before and after with that Camera Raw edit. We can bring this same Camera Raw filter onto the other 2 cutouts. So just holding Option, you can click and drag these smart filters onto another smart object. So we'll drag it onto number 2, and same thing with numbers 3 and 4, holding Option, clicking and dragging on the smart filters, both to number 3 and to number 4. So now I've got the same Camera Raw edit on all of these cutouts. Now you can get away with this because all these photos were taken in the exact same lighting conditions, so all the player coloring looks consistent. And if you are making a poster like this with this sort of photo progression, you should have pretty consistent lighting with all these images. We can redistribute the spacing a little bit just because we have these shadows now. So I want to keep this 2-box margin, but maybe we move number 4 over over numbers 2 and 3 up a little bit. Just make it feel a little bit more consistent. Let's make a new layer and start adding some text. So I'm gonna hit T for my type tool. Let's first type out layout in big letters. The font we're using is Helvetica. I'm gonna rotate this one sideways, and we're just gonna drag it to the left edge of the canvas. Now again, with our margins, let's pull up our grids, Command apostrophe, and let's say maybe this sticks out 3 boxes, and can blow this up even further. I kind of like the idea of having this bottom guy overlap with the text. And we could take our 4th cutout and just bring him all the way over, so he's really completing the layout and going off the screen. I kind of like that. Next, I'm gonna make another new layer, and again, T for the type tool. We'll type out layout again. I'm gonna put this one in quotes. Now these quotation marks I don't love in the Helvetica font, so I'm gonna switch them to Poppins bold. They're more of like lines instead of the full squigglies. Let's do Poppins bold on this quote as well. This will kind of serve as the title of our poster. So again, pulling up my grids with Command apostrophe. I'm gonna position this so it's in this like 2 box from the top, 2 box from the right. I'm also gonna draw out another text box on a new layer. Let's bring this one in next to the word layout. We'll kind of have it going into the vertical word as well. I'm gonna bring this font size down to 13. Spacing, we'll do 22 and 80 spacing between letters. Now I have this text pulled up in a text edit window, just kind of a description of the play that I'm gonna copy and paste in. Toba Decrana lays out to save possession. Going to paragraph formatting, let's switch to this full justify. This is all in the paragraph panel or the character panel to edit the text. And again, with the grids, let's make sure this is kind of locked into that 2 box margin on the right. And we can have it going like 2 boxes between this text and the word layout. So we've kind of got our top text positioned up here. Now we'll add in some text at the bottom. I do kind of want this text to sit more in the middle of this U and T. So maybe we can size our layout word up. But something like that feels better to me, and then we can readjust our positioning on our 4th player cutout. Can readjust the spacing between our cutouts if we need to. Again, just highlighting all of our layers. Horizontally distribute spacing, vertically distribute spacing. And number 2 and 3 always feel a little too close to the left when I do that, so I'm just gonna move them back over. Kind of give everyone room to breathe. I think moving number 3 up, and probably number 2 up a little bit. So now for our bottom text, let's make a new layer. T for the type tool, click once, and I've got kind of a series of 2-line phrases or pairs of text that we can place. So we've got the player's name and team. For this spacing, I'm gonna change it back to 0, and we'll do size 16 font with 16 space between lines. That same 2 box margin we're gonna do on the bottom now. So Toba Decrana, Boston Glory. Let's hit Command J to duplicate this layer, move it over, and then our next pair of text, we've got a description of the play and what game it was in. And now repeating this process, Command J, let's go back to our text edit text. And it's a good idea to kind of have like a library of these little text elements that you can add with any design. Just can help like frame things and add some additional context. So that's what we're doing here. I really just like the idea of text being down here. It's not so important to me what it says, but it's nice that it's related to the player and the play. So now I'm just taking this last one, Bree Stevens Field, Madison, Wisconsin, and moving it to that 2 box margin on the right. And now you can select all of these holding shift, and again, distribute horizontally with the move tool selected. So now everything is evenly spaced. I'm gonna group these in a folder too and just call it bottom text. And now we can also bring like a big block over this to kind of separate the different design elements. So I'm gonna make a new layer. Let's just take our rectangle tool and draw out a black box. We can change our text color to white so we can see it, or let's use this gray. Actually, I'm just gonna eyedropper, hitting I, this background color, and then going to our swatches, click on the gray to change your text color. And I just wanna make sure the text is like centered on the box, so we can move it down. Maybe we end up doing a 1.5 box margin on the bottom, so then the top of the box would go to somewhere around there. Maybe our bottom cutout here is a little bit too close to this box. Like ideally there'd be a little bit more space. So maybe we can just take that one cutout in this text and just move it up slightly. Maybe shrink the text back down. So I think something around here feels pretty good. Like everything has enough breathing room. Again, we can move cutouts 3 and number 2 up, just to keep that spacing. Now I'm looking at the spacing between the top text and our first player cutout, which right now is like 2.5 boxes about, and we're still looking at a little over 2 for this bottom cutout. So maybe let's just move the top cutout up a bit so it's in line with that same margin that we're seeing at the bottom. And then again, I'm just gonna highlight all of these and redistribute the spacing. I'm gonna throw on some finishing effects now. Let's make a new folder and call it finishing. Start with a new layer, hold shift and hit delete to bring up this fill box. 50% gray, we'll hit OK. Filter, convert for smart filters, then filter, noise, add noise, 7% is good. And we'll change this blend mode to hard light, set the fill to 50%. Just gives us this nice subtle grain kind of going over everything. And underneath the grain, I'm gonna do a curves layer and just wanna lift up the black point and kind of give things this matte feel. We could boost the highlights slightly too. I just don't wanna lose the disc on the background, but this feels pretty good. Next, I think I just want to play with the skin tone colors a little bit. So if we bring in a selective color adjustment layer, we can take our reds and just bring them down. Kind of gives it a little bit more pop. Something like this, just a little bit more emphasis. You can see it before and after the finishing effects. Now we could stop here, but I did want to show you a few different color options you have with this style of poster. Obviously we've gone pretty grayscale with just like the pop of color from the player. We could go entirely grayscale, and that's kind of its own look. I'm gonna group all these player cutouts together, just call them cutouts. We're gonna add on a gradient map adjustment layer, and I'm gonna clip this to the cutout layer by holding Option and hovering in this space, then clicking. So now we've got the gradient map only affecting our cutouts. Right now it's set to gray and gray, so you can't see anything, but if you go to your basics and change it to a black to white gradient map, now you can see the cutouts in all their glory. So just adjusting these dials until it's a black and white scheme that you like, you can hit OK. Now this could be where you want to take the poster, just a full grayscale look. You could also get a little bit fancy with it. If we wanted to like pop out the disc and keep everything else in a more muted tone, we could take this cutouts folder, change the blend mode to multiply, so all the white values are now taking on the value of this gray background. And now if you duplicate the cutouts with the gradient map, Command J, we can now switch this blend mode back to normal and put an inverted mask on it. So holding Option, you can click on the mask icon. Now with our brush selected, we're gonna use a white brush to reveal back the disc and just make it pop out, whereas everything else is gray and black. We have the pop of the disc, so I'm just brushing in where the disc is appearing in each of these cutouts. And on this last one, I'll probably need to reveal a bit more so we can see what's going on. You get the idea. You kind of are left with this popping out disc effect. Maybe this last cutout we just make full white and black. We don't even do that gray. So it's really an emphasis on the catch and the finish. So this is another route you can go. The last color variation I wanted to highlight is just using a different color than gray for the background. So we can switch these cutouts back to pass through. We'll take off the gradient map. And for the background color, let's make a new layer and let's use, first I'm gonna turn off the finishing effects, and then I'm gonna eyedropper, hitting eye, this glory gold color. And now with the fill tool selected, let's just fill the background in gold. And we'll kind of do this like black and gold color scheme. So this bottom text we can also change to that same gold. Slightly different look, obviously more color in this last one, but I do think the grayscale with white emphasis is a cool style. Really, you can't go wrong. It's kind of fun to get to this point in a poster where it feels like you can take the colorway any direction you want. So I just figured I'd show a few different options that I was playing with when I created this poster. So we're gonna stop there as our final action sequence sports poster. Hope this video was helpful in showing you an example of how I would lay out an action sequence like this one. Now, obviously these action sequences can vary in player orientation. You might have a more vertically oriented action sequence where players are jumping up. You might have them going from left to right. So you kind of have to work with what you are given. Obviously in this one, we have the player going from right to left, very horizontally formatted, so it didn't really make a ton of sense to put these players all on the same plane, so I kind of staggered them vertically. Work with what you have, and I'd recommend just building out the rest of the composition with some simple text. Thanks as always for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one.